So good morning everyone. Welcome to our English for academic and professional purposes class. So before we start, I would like to introduce myself. I am your teacher for this morning and I am teacher Rexel J. Clemeni. So let's proceed with our lesson. Our lesson for this morning is all about explaining concepts. And let's start with our class objectives. At the end of the lesson, the students will be able to first, identify key features of definition, explication, and clarification. Compare and contrast the three ways of explaining a concept. Explain concept, applying definition, explication, and clarification. Now, I will ask you a question. What comes to your mind when you hear the word concept? What comes to your mind when you hear the word concept? Now let me know your answer by writing your comments or by writing your answers in the comment section. Okay. Now let's define first what do you mean by concept paper. A concept paper is an in-depth analysis of any idea, situation, or practice. It can be on anything that you find significant. It can be a feeling, like what is self-esteem? It can be a cultural practice. What is Filipino time? It can be a belief. For example, what is transmigration? It can be a situation, like what is same-sex marriage? Now class, to make it short, a concept paper examines the whatness or nature of something. Now let's proceed to explaining concepts. Class, there are three ways to explain a concept, namely definition, explication, and clarification. Let's start with definition. Definition is used to provide the meaning of a given word or term and making its meaning clearer. Definitions can be presented in three ways: formal, informal, or extended. Now let's start with formal definition. Formal definition is a one-sentence explanation that includes the term, class, distinguishing features of, or characteristics. The term is the word or phrase to be defined. Class refers to which the term belongs or the general category of the term. And distinguishing characteristics are the qualities that make the term different from other terms in the same category. Let's have an example for that. Now take a look at the example. It starts with carbohydrates, and carbohydrates is the term, followed by verb are, followed by class. Carbohydrates belongs to a food group, and distinguishing characteristics of carbohydrates is including sugars, starches, and cellulose. Now, if we are going to read this one, carbohydrates are a food group including sugars, starches, and cellulose. So you see now we dissect the part by the means of formal definition. Starts with a word or a term. A term is a word or an idea that needs to be defined in your formal definition. It is followed by class and distinguishing characteristics. Now let's proceed to informal definition. Informal definition is a brief explanation of the given term. It may also include known words or examples to explain an unknown term. The definition may be a synonym or antonym, introduced by, or in other words, or like. Now let's have the examples for informal definition. Let's start with the first example. Facebook is a social networking website. Now Facebook is the term, the verb is, and the class, a social networking website. Now let's proceed to the second example. Freedom, also referred to as liberty or independence, is a state when people are free to think and do. The term is freedom. Now notice that freedom is synonymous to the word liberty and independence. It is followed by the verb is and the class, a state when people are free to think and do. Now let's proceed to the next. Extended definition. Extended definition involves one or more paragraphs that try to explain a complex term. This type of definition applies various patterns of paragraph development. For example, narration, comparison and contrast, formal and informal definition, process, analogy, cause and effect, to explain a given concept. Now let's have the example for extended definition. As what you have seen, this is an example of extended definition. It is different from the previous one, the formal and informal. It is a little bit lengthy. So let's analyze the text by emphasizing its key features. Let's have the formal sentence definition begins this extended definition. So the first sentence we have here, stress is a measure of the internal reaction between elementary particles of a material in resisting separation, compacting, or sliding that tend to be induced by external forces. The first sentence is an example of formal definition. Now let's proceed to the next one. Supplementary definition used within this extended definition. These are the supplementary definition. These are the signal words for definition. Is defined as defined means refers to define, to illustrate. Now let's proceed to explication. Remember that we have three ways for us to explain a concept, namely definition, and the second one is explication, and the last one, which is clarification. Now let's focus on the second ways for you to explain a concept, which is explication. Explication is a method or of explanation that uses a critical interpretation of a concept, referring to sentences, verses, quotes, or passages from another source. Explication gives another perspective of a concept. It interprets another work by looking at the idea or ideas introduced. Through careful analysis of points brought up in the text, a clearer explanation of the concept is given to readers. This can be presented through comparison and contrast, description, cause and effect, and other patterns of paragraph development, according to Valdez. Okay. Now this is an example of explication. It is an explication of the road not taken. So, it's what you have read a while ago, is what I have discussed. Explication is a critical analysis of a given topic or idea. You've undergone analysis to interpret a certain idea, thought, or a certain literature. Now let's proceed to clarification. Clarification is another way of explaining a concept wherein the points are arranged from a general abstract concept to specific concrete examples. It involves the analysis of the concept by looking at the examples and specifying the number of its features to reach at one working definition. Now you just have to remember that when we talk about clarification, the points are arranged from a general abstract concept to specific concrete examples. Now let's have the signal words for clarification. After all is an example, for example, for instance, in particular, in short, namely, specifically, to be specific, to clarify, to illustrate. Consider the following. Now these are the signal words for clarification. Let's proceed to the example that we have for clarification. This is a sample clarification text. The book is a valuable resource as it provides interesting theoretical and methodological means for analyzing news discourse. For instance, analyzing the combination of images and text allows greater understanding of values encoded in the news. In addition, the book adequately discusses means for addressing the methodological problems in analyzing data in different forms of media. Moreover, since the book draws on different perspectives, readers will find a range of options to work with when confronting their own data. To illustrate, the news may not only be seen on the national or international scene, but also in specific locales. Therefore, this can help in making sense of one's data through adequate examples. So as what you have noticed, the clarification text that we have here starts with general abstract concept, which is the first sentence. The book is a valuable resource as it provides interesting theoretical and methodological means for analyzing news discourse. So this is the general abstract concept. And notice that the examples or the elaboration followed after the general abstract concept. And notice also that we have a lot of signal words, like for instance, in addition, moreover, to illustrate, and the word therefore. So this is an example of a perfect clarification text, a perfect example of a clarification text. Now, is everything clear so far? Feel free to comment your questions, and I will try my best to attend to your questions. Okay? Alright. Now, thank you so much for joining today's class, and I hope you've learned something. Now, these are our references.